See that
I'm fantastic.
we're both in our usual bunkers.
We, yeah, I don't know if you can see, I've added some faces and heads to my wall and a little bit of soundproofing.
Oh, look at you
Looks
with
like
the
a Muppet
fancy
back there right now.
Zoom studio.
Yeah, that's my collection of wigs and heads and gear for whenever the pandemic's over and we can get back into being ridiculous on stage playing our music again.
That's right.
In the meantime, I just have 5 heads with wigs haunting me in the basement. Anyway, so I hear you just finished or in the process of finishing up, wrapping up production of a new podcast series. Is that rumor true?
Yes, that rumor is true. The series is called Service and Sacrifice, The Gaspé Coast, and the Two World Wars. And
Ah,
I'm going to be launching those within the next couple of weeks. Uh,
okay.
yeah, so we've been hard at work there doing that. It's quite the undertaking.
I imagine you're quite the military guy. Since I've known you, I've always referred to you as Military Tom. Um, but but when did you first become interested in the Gaspé Coast military history? Because you've since I've known you, you've had a lot of projects on
Yeah.
your up your sleeve.
Well, it started off as an interest when I was a child. Simply by the fact that I was surrounded by veterans. I was raised in the late '60s, and I was born in 1963. So I was raised in the late '60s, early '70s. When, yeah, 57, Dave. Uh, um, and that was the era when there were actually still World War One
Yeah.
veterans alive at that point. At that stage, they would have been in their late 70s and early 80s,
Mm.
and the World War II veterans were still of working age. So yeah, so I was sort of fascinated by the whole concept there. Just basically a little boy curiosity kind of a thing there.
Hmm.
Uh, and of course, I had like within my family, there were a lot of World War One and World War II veterans as well. And so it started off by just I was interested in the whole the adventure aspect of it, or the fact that they went to Europe and
Yeah.
all that. Or I found
In the
something,
prime of their youth.
yeah, found something appealing about that there.
What, just out of curiosity, not to give away some of the content of the podcast series, but you were saying World War One vets. Was there quite a few from the coast? World War One vets?
We're talking hundreds.
Wow.
One of the things, well, yeah, one of the things that the Gaspé Coast, uh, in terms of military service, it's always been fertile ground for recruiting soldiers. There's a bunch of different reasons for that. There, it's not all raw patriotism. There, a lot of it was economic.
Yeah.
Uh, for a lot of these young men, it was a job. It was also an adventure for a lot of them. Possibly, particularly the World War One guys, it was, and the World War Two guys. It was the opportunity to travel, to see things that you otherwise wouldn't. It seems as though almost they in their thinking they didn't really consider the dangers. They didn't really consider the horrors
Oh
of
no.
war. They just thought about it from the adventure standpoint, and there were a lot of them were motivated by a sense of duty,
Yeah.
and it was also a sense of well, if my neighbor's going to go, I should go too, right? You don't want to leave
Yeah.
the fighting up to the others. There was a lot of that. There was some social pressure, I guess, uh, but
Well, especially if your neighbor's going and your other neighbor's going, why aren't you going?
that's right. That's right. But like traditionally, like in the for the First and the Second World War, the volunteer ratio or rates, if you will, were always very very high in the Gaspé Coast, and that applies across cultural lines, whether it be Anglophones, Francophones, or Mi'kmaq. The volunteer rates for all those communities were very high.
Now you're only 57, so you weren't World War One or World War Two. But you did
Yeah,
spend some time in the military, yes?
that's right. I joined the military in 1981 at the age of 18. And I was lucky because,
Adventure?
yeah, well, for me, it was, yeah, exactly. So one of the reasons I joined. And I had an uncle, Fernand Savoy. He had served during the Second World War, and he was, when I was talking about the influences within my family, he was one of them.
Hmm.
And Uncle Fernand, he was in the Royal Canadian Engineers. And
Oh,
during World War II, he was in the 85th Bridge Company. Their job was to repair or replace the bridges as the Germans were retreating. Of course, the Germans were destroying the bridges.
mhm.
So he was in an outfit that was tasked with rebuilding those bridges. And a lot of the stories that he told me about his time in England and his time in France sort of motivated me to join on my when my turn sort of came up there. But I still remember like the day, sort of the day that the decision was made, and it's actually in New Richmond that it happened.
Oh,
I went over to the shopping center. My uncle in New Richmond owned a furniture store, and I was working with him that day, or working for him that day. And he'd sent me on an errand to the shopping mall, and the Canadian Forces had a kiosk set up. Be all that you can be, and all that stuff. And they had all the different pamphlets for the trades and explaining a little bit what the Canadian Forces were like and all that. So I grabbed a handful of pamphlets, and basically by the time I got back to the store, my mind was made up that I was going to join. And I remember telling my other uncle, Fernand Savoy, about this. And he answered. He says, "Well, you might as well." He says, "Because you're not gone. You're not. It doesn't look as though you're going to be doing too much here." So I was sort of at a crossroads in my life there. I didn't really know what I wanted to do in terms of studies, and I found it hard to be motivated to study in a field that wasn't really a passion.
Yep.
So I decided to join the military, and it was at that time it was the right decision for me. Yeah.
I was going to say, your uncle, are there any digitizations of your uncle's stories? Did he have any good stories? Are they out there anywhere? Are they included in this at all? Or?
Not really. That particular uncle passed away about 10 years ago now, 10, 15 years ago now. The only thing I have is the memory of those stories
Yeah.
and some photographs. I have a really good photograph of him that I'll actually put on this video of him with his motorcycle, because one of the things within that bridge company, one of his duties at one time was dispatch rider.
Oh,
So I have a really good picture of him in Normandy with his motorcycle. A picture that was taken in the summer of 1944, shortly after the D-Day landings.